In the sweltering haze of 1842 Charleston, where the air hung heavy with the scent of magnolias and marsh rot, the elite families of the Lowcountry guarded their fortunes like sacred relics. Plantations sprawled like bloated spiders across the Carolina coast, their webs spun from cotton and human suffering. But beneath the polished veneer of Southern gentility lurked a corruption so profound it festered in the very soil. Enter Solomon, an enslaved man born under the blood moon of 1805 on the Beaumont plantation. Tall, sinewy, with eyes like polished obsidian that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, Solomon was no ordinary bondsman. Whispers among the quarters spoke of his African lineage, descended from Yoruba priests who commanded spirits of the earth. But the Beaumonts, a dynasty of 9 brothers who inherited the land from their tyrannical father, saw only labor in his frame. The brothers, Elias, the eldest, with his iron fist, Jeremiah, the sadist who wielded the whip like a lover's caress, and the youngest, Tobias, whose piety masked unspeakable vices, ruled with institutional cruelty. Churches in town preached submission, orphanages housed the bastard children of their indiscretions, and the seminary-trained pastors blessed their ledgers. Yet one humid night Elias vanished. No scream, no struggle, just an empty bed and a faint scent of freshly turned earth. The family dismissed it as a runaway affair, but Solomon's gaze lingered on the graveyard beyond the fields, where ancient oaks twisted like tormented souls. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the rice paddies, the air grew thick with unspoken dread. Servants averted eyes, murmuring prayers to forgotten gods. What if the ground itself hungered for revenge? The Beaumonts, blinded by their control, failed to see the cracks forming beneath their feet, literal and metaphorical. Solomon moved silently through the big house, his footsteps echoing like distant thunder, carrying trays laced with secrets. The first disappearance was merely the prelude to a symphony of terror, a descent into the abyss where suppressed truths clawed their way free. The Beaumont brothers embodied the rot at the heart of Charleston's aristocracy. Inherited wealth from cotton barons who traded in souls, their mansion stood as a monument to institutional control, a sprawling edifice of white columns and hidden cellars where whips hung like trophies. Elias, the patriarch, enforced order with a ledger that tallied lashes like prophets. Jeremiah found ecstasy in breaking spirits, his laughter mingling with the cries from the whipping post. Tobias, the seminary dropout, quoted scripture while indulging in nocturnal rituals that left orphans trembling in the night. But ancient trauma pulsed through their bloodline. Their grandfather, a slave trader haunted by visions, had unearthed a Yoruba artifact during a raid. A carved stone idol said to bind the living to the earth's wrath. Buried in the family vault beneath the church, it was forgotten, or so they thought. Solomon, tasked with tending the grounds, discovered it one storm-lashed evening. The idol's eyes glowed faintly, whispering in a tongue that resonated in his bones. As Elias's absence stretched into weeks, paranoia seeped into the household. Doors creaked without wind, shadows elongated unnaturally. The family church, St. Agnes, where the brothers funded pews carved with their initials, became a sanctuary of false piety. Pastor Hale, a man with eyes like hollow pits, preached on obedience, but his sermons carried an undercurrent of fear, as if he knew the idol's curse had awakened. Solomon's revenge began subtly. He laced meals with herbs from the swamp, inducing vivid nightmares where the brothers saw themselves entombed, dirt filling their mouths. Sensory details assaulted them. The metallic tang of blood, the suffocating weight of soil, the distant echo of muffled screams. Yet, they blamed fever dreams, not the slave who watched with impassive calm. The town whispered of a curse, but the Beaumonts suppressed it, burning letters and silencing witnesses. Little did they know the descent had only begun. The orphanage next door held clues to deeper horrors. Adjacent to the Beaumont mansion loomed the Charleston Orphanage for Wayward Souls, a grim bastion funded by the brothers' charity. Its walls, stained with soot from nearby factories, housed children born of illicit unions, offspring of slaves and masters, their existence a suppressed truth buried in baptismal records. The air inside reeked of lye soap and despair, floors creaking under the weight of unspoken sins. Matron Eliza, a severe woman with a seminary education twisted by institutional loyalty, ruled with a rod disguised as mercy. She knew the brothers' secrets. Midnight visits where Tobias and Jeremiah selected favorites, leaving bruises hidden under collars. But corruption bound her silence. Donations ensured the orphanage's survival amid Charleston's economic churn. Solomon, often sent to deliver supplies, observed the children's haunted eyes, mirrors of his own trauma. One boy, little Amos, whispered of the ground man who came at night, a figure with soil-caked hands promising freedom. Was it delusion, or had Solomon's spirit walks begun? The second disappearance struck. Jeremiah, found missing from his study, quill still wet with ink. A single clue, a clump of graveyard dirt on his desk. Panic rippled through the family. Elias's wife, Amelia, clutched her rosary, her dreams plagued by visions of writhing roots pulling men underground. The church convened a prayer vigil, but Pastor Hale's voice trembled, invoking ancient psalms against earthly demons. Psychological turns deepened the dread. The remaining brothers questioned loyalties, accusing each other of foul play. Solomon, ever the shadow, planted doubts with overheard whispers. Sensory immersion heightened. The crunch of gravel underfoot at night, the faint scrape of shovels in the distance. The orphanage children sang eerie lullabies, their voices carrying symbolic weight, songs of buried kings and rising slaves. As the town turned a blind eye, fortified by class and color lines, the forbidden knowledge stirred. The idol's power wasn't myth, but a conduit for ancestral rage. Deep in Charleston's ecclesiastical heart stood St. Agnes Seminary, where young men trained in the art of divine control. Its Gothic spires pierced the sky like accusatory fingers, cloisters echoing with chants that masked deeper corruptions. The Beaumonts, benefactors supreme, ensured their influence permeated the curriculum, sermons justifying bondage as God's will. Brother Lucius, a gaunt instructor with a scar from a slave uprising, guarded the archives. Dusty tomes detailing pagan relics, smuggled from Africa. Among them, references to the Yoruba idol symbol of Ogun, god of iron and vengeance. Suppressed by colonial edicts, these texts hinted at rituals binding masters to their atrocities. Tobias, fresh from seminary, carried its taint. His disappearance came third, during a solitary prayer in the family chapel. Vanished mid-verse, Bible open to Job's lamentations. The air held a chill, as if the earth had exhaled its cold breath. Amelia, now hysterical, confessed to visions. 9 graves in a circle, roots like veins pulsing with life. Solomon's hand grew bolder. By day he toiled. By night, he invoked the idol in hidden groves, his chants blending with cricket symphonies. Sensory details vivid. The idol's stone warm to touch, emitting a low vibration that hummed through his veins. Psychological grip tightened. The brothers' sleep fractured by auditory hallucinations, whispers of revenge in the wind. The town, a web of interconnected families, began to fracture. Whispers in taverns spoke of a burier, a spectral slave enacting justice. Churches doubled services, orphanages locked doors earlier. But institutional control faltered. Seminary students reported unearthed bones in the courtyard, symbolic of buried sins resurfacing. As the fourth brother, Harlan, felt eyes upon him in the mirror, eyes not his own, the descent accelerated, pulling all toward the abyss of ancient trauma. In the Beaumont attic, amid moth-eaten trunks, lay diaries bound in human-tanned leather, a grotesque heirloom from their traitor forebears. Elias's entries detailed profits from auctions, but between lines lurked confessions. Nightmares of enslaved ancestors rising, their chains turning to serpents. Solomon, granted access to clean, pored over them in secret. The pages smelled of aged ink and regret, words blurring under candlelight as if alive. He learned of the idol's theft. Grandfather Beaumont's trophy from a sacked village, cursed by a dying priest. The earth shall claim 9 for the 900 taken. The fourth vanishing. Harlan, the financier, disappeared from his counting house. Coins scattered, a ledger entry unfinished, debts to the grave, dirt trailed to the window, as if dragged by invisible hands. The family's grip on reality slipped. Brothers barricaded rooms, but walls seemed to breathe. Ominous tone deepened in town. Churches rang bells at odd hours, warding off demons. Orphanage children drew circles of 9 figures, buried in drawings. Seminary archives were sealed, but leaks emerged, tales of similar curses in colonial logs. Psychological turns. Remaining brothers hallucinated Solomon everywhere, his form merging with shadows. Sensory assault. The taste of soil in water, the feel of worms in bedsheets. Symbolic language abounded. 9 ravens perched on the mansion roof, omens of doom. Amelia, unraveling, sought a medium, but the session unleashed whispers. Solomon knows your sins. As corruption's veil thinned, forbidden knowledge beckoned. The idol wasn't mere stone. It channeled collective trauma, a vessel for the enslaved's rage. Solomon's revenge unfolded methodically, each burial a ritual reclaiming power. The descent continued, drawing the narrative deeper into the psychological mire where institutional facades crumbled like dry earth. Charleston in 1842 was a tapestry of silenced voices, its cobblestone streets echoing with the clip-clop of carriages ferrying the elite. Taverns buzzed with gossip, but mentions of the Beaumont disappearances were hushed by threats. Families intertwined through marriages and mortgages dared not probe. The 5th brother, Gideon, vanished during a town meeting at City Hall, debating slave codes. One moment debating, the next, his seat empty, a faint mound of dirt under the table. Witnesses swore they heard scraping below the floorboards, like nails on coffin lids. Solomon navigated this web unseen, his presence a ghost in the quarters. He visited the black market herbalists, procuring roots that induced paralysis. Victims awake but immobile as he buried them. The air in his hut thick with incense, masking the metallic scent of vengeance. Emotional undertones surged. Brothers' letters revealed guilt, ancient trauma from witnessing uprisings as children. Churches, complicit, preached forgiveness for masters alone. Orphanages reported children sleepwalking toward the graveyard, chanting in unknown tongues. Psychological grip. Paranoia bred accusations. Brothers turned on kin, suspecting betrayal. Sensory details. The omnipresent humidity clung like guilt. Nights pierced by owl hoots symbolizing death. Seminary whispers grew. Students dreamed of underground chambers where the buried screamed eternally. Pastor Hale, cracking, confessed to Amelia. The idol feeds on control. Break it, or it breaks us. But suppression reigned. Town records omitted vanishings, labeling them relocations. Solomon's myth swelled underground, slaves passing tales like forbidden currency. The descent plunged further, uncovering layers of corruption where institutions not only hid secrets but birthed them. 5. Beyond Charleston's fringes lay the cypress swamps, veils of mist shrouding ancient secrets. Solomon retreated here, the ground squelching underfoot, alive with the hum of insects and forgotten spirits. The idol, now his talisman, pulsed with energy drawn from each burial. The 6th disappearance. Reuben, the hunter, lost in these very swamps during a nocturnal pursuit. His hounds returned alone, muzzles caked in mud, whining as if haunted. Search parties found only his rifle, half buried, barrel pointed skyward like a plea. Vivid sensory. The swamp's dank odor, vines coiling like nooses, water lapping with insidious rhythm. Solomon's rituals intensified. Circles of salt and blood, chants invoking Ogun to swallow the oppressors. Themes deepened. Institutional control as the illusion, shattered by ancestral forces. Churches condemned paganism, but their foundations rested on stolen land, trauma embedded in mortar. Psychological turns. Surviving brothers experienced dissociation. Moments where they felt buried alive, breath shallow, darkness pressing. Amelia's diary entries turned frantic, symbols of crosses morphing into graves. Orphanage horrors emerged. Children vanishing. reappearing with tales of the kind Burier, who promised reunion with lost parents. Seminary classes halted as visions plagued acolytes. 9 masters clawing at earthen walls. Town families, sensing the curses spread, fortified homes with iron, Ogun's metal ironically. Suppressed truths bubbled. Beaumont ancestors had massacred a Yoruba enclave. 9 leaders buried alive as warning. Solomon's revenge mirrored this, a cycle of trauma reborn. The narrative descended, layers peeling to reveal the heart of corruption. A web where no institution stood innocent. As vanishings mounted, the Beaumont remnant fractured. Brothers 7 and 8, Silas and Malachi, holed up in the mansion, alliances crumbling under suspicion. Whispers echoed in halls. Who aids the devil? Guns drawn at shadows, their paranoia a psychological vortex. Solomon exploited this, leaving clues, dirt-filled shoes in bedrooms, symbolic of impending doom. The air tasted of dust and fear, candles flickering as if breathed upon. The church intervened, Pastor Hale performing exorcisms. But during one, Silas screamed, vanishing mid-prayer. Floorboards buckled, a sinkhole swallowing him. Malachi fled to the seminary, only to disappear in its library, books on curses scattered. Emotional intensity. Letters revealed brothers' remorse, ancient guilt from childhood cruelties. Orphanages locked down, but children scratched messages on walls. 9 for 900. Town's corruption exposed. Mayor, a Beaumont cousin, suppressed investigations, pockets lined with plantation gold. Sensory immersion. Nights heavy with silence broken by distant digging, skin prickling with unseen eyes. Psychological grip. Malachi's last note. I feel the earth calling. The descent unveiled forbidden knowledge, the idol not destroyer, but equalizer, channeling collective suffering. Jares to hide profits from slave labor. The mayor, a Beaumont cousin, ensured sheriffs ignored vanishings, labeling them accidents. Town elites, bound by blood and greed, maintained a veneer of civility while dread seeped into their bones. Silas's disappearance shattered pretense. During Hale's exorcism, the chandelier swayed, shadows dancing like specters. Silas's scream, raw, guttural, cut off as the floor collapsed, a sinkhole yawning like a hungry mouth. Dirt cascaded, smelling of decay, and the congregation fled, crosses clutched like talismans. Malachi, the 8th, sought refuge in the seminary library, surrounded by forbidden texts on African curses. He vanished amid scattered pages, a single line circled, "The earth reclaims its debts." Solomon's presence loomed larger, a psychological specter. He left symbolic tokens, 9 pebbles in a circle, a noose of roots on doorsteps. Sensory assault intensified. The mansion's air grew thick with the scent of wet soil, mirrors reflecting glimpses of buried faces. The brothers' letters, found by Amelia, revealed childhood memories of watching slaves punished. Their screams haunting dreams now turned real. The town's complicity unraveled. Orphanage records showed missing children, sent to plantations as labor apprentices. Church sermons avoided the vanishings, but pews emptied as fear spread. Seminary students whispered of visions. 9 masters trapped in an earthen purgatory, clawing at roots that pulsed like veins. Emotional undertones surged. Guilt, terror, and the weight of ancestral sins crushed the living. Forbidden knowledge surfaced. The idol wasn't just a relic, but a conduit for collective rage, amplifying Solomon's rituals. Each burial was a step deeper into the abyss, where institutional facades crumbled, exposing corruption's roots. The narrative descended further, toward the final brother and the truth no one could suppress. Tobias, the final Beaumont, barricaded himself in the mansion's attic, surrounded by crosses and salt lines. His seminary training, once a shield, now mocked him, scripture powerless against the earth's hunger. His diary, ink smeared with trembling script, confessed, I see them in the walls, my brothers, buried staring. The air reeked of mold and fear, windows rattling as if the ground knocked. Solomon's rituals reached crescendo in the swamp, the idol glowing under moonlight. He chanted, voice merging with wind, summoning Ogun's wrath. Sensory details. The idol's heat seared his palms, swamp water bubbling like blood. Each word carved the ninth grave in the ether. Tobias's psychological unraveling was total. He heard shovels scraping beneath floorboards, felt dirt in his throat during sleep. Visions plagued him. 9 graves in a circle, his brothers' faces contorted, mouths filled with roots. The orphanage, now abandoned, echoed with children's chants, their voices a chorus of vengeance. Charleston's institutions crumbled. The church, stripped of congregants, held midnight vigils, but candles snuffed out inexplicably. Seminary archives burned, accidentally, erasing evidence of the idol's curse. The mayor fled, leaving a note. The ground knows our sins. Emotional intensity peaked. Tobias's guilt, a lifetime of preaching submission while indulging cruelty, birthed hallucinations of Solomon as a towering figure, eyes blazing like coals. Symbolic imagery. 9 ravens circled the mansion, omens of finality. The descent into forbidden knowledge revealed the idol's true power, not to destroy, but to mirror. It reflected the Beaumonts' corruption, their control and illusion against ancestral trauma. As Tobias screamed his final prayer, the attic floor gave way, swallowing him into darkness. Solomon watched from the graveyard, the earth sighing in satisfaction. Charleston awoke to an eerie calm after the storm, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and unspoken dread. The Beaumont mansion stood abandoned, its windows dark, vines creeping like fingers claiming the walls. The graveyard's 9 mounds, now smoothed by rain, bore no markers, yet none dared walk there. Amelia, unhinged, was found clutching the idol's shards, babbling of eyes in the ground. Institutional powers moved swiftly. The mayor's office declared the vanishings tragic accidents, blaming fever or runaways. Church records erased mentions of Pastor Hale, who vanished post-vigil, his Bible found buried in the swamp. Sensory details haunted survivors. The crunch of gravel felt like bones. Night breezes carried whispers of Solomon. Orphanage children, relocated to distant homes, spoke of a kind man who freed them from shadows. Their drawings, 9 graves, a figure with glowing eyes, were burned by matrons. Psychological scars lingered. Townsfolk avoided the Beaumont land, claiming footsteps echoed from below. The seminary closed, its archives sealed in a Charleston vault, rumored to contain a single page. The earth keeps its debts. Emotional undertones. Guilt gnawed at the elite, their wealth built on suppressed truths. The idol's curse, though spent, left a psychic wound. Charleston's prosperity tainted by the trauma it buried. Forbidden knowledge surfaced in whispers among freedmen. Solomon had invoked Ogun not for vengeance, but balance, each burial a reckoning for centuries of stolen lives. Historical texture. 1842 Charleston saw a quiet exodus of slaves, emboldened by rumors of a liberator. Solomon's fate remained a mystery. Some said he melted into the lowcountry, others that the earth claimed him as its own. The narrative descended deeper, toward the question of legacy. Could a town built on blood ever cleanse its soul? By 1843, Solomon's name became a whispered legend, a forbidden gospel among Charleston's enslaved. In hush harbors, secret gatherings and swamps, elders spoke of the Burier, a man who turned the master's weapon, the earth, against them. His story, laced with symbolic power, grew. 9 graves for 9 sins, a circle closing an ancient wound. The town, desperate to suppress the truth, burned Beaumont records. The mansion was razed, blamed on lightning, though no storm was noted. The site became a shunned patch, grass refusing to grow, soil perpetually damp. Sensory details. Passers-by reported a faint hum, like a heartbeat underfoot, and the scent of iron in the air. Churches doubled down, preaching against pagan vengeance. But their pews stayed empty. The orphanage, repurposed as a textile mill, echoed with children's laughter at night, ghostly or imagined. The seminary's vault, locked tight, was said to glow faintly, its secrets bleeding through stone. Psychological turns. Elite families dreamed of dirt-filled lungs, waking to find mud on their pillows. The mayor's successor, a Beaumont kin, resigned, claiming visions of hands clawing from graves. Emotional intensity. Guilt and fear fractured Charleston's facade, exposing its complicity in institutional evil. Forbidden knowledge spread beyond the Lowcountry. Travelers carried tales of Solomon to Savannah, New Orleans, each retelling adding mythic weight. Was he man or spirit? Historical texture. Friedman's oral histories, preserved in 1930s WPA interviews, mentioned a shadow priest who buried masters alive, his name a code for resistance. The descent deepened, peeling back layers of denial. Charleston's wealth, built on trauma, could not escape its shadow. Solomon's revenge wasn't just retribution. It was a mirror, forcing a town to face its corruption. The narrative edged toward the final question. What price does accursed land pay? Decades passed, but Charleston's soil held memories. By the 1870s, the Beaumont plot was a wasteland, avoided by developers despite booming reconstruction. Locals swore the ground shifted at night, mounds rising and falling like breaths. The air carried a faint metallic tang, as if blood lingered in the roots. Suppressed truths resurfaced in fragments. A freedman's memoir, hidden in a church attic, detailed Solomon's rituals. Offerings of salt and iron, chants that woke the earth. The idol, though shattered, left an imprint. Trees near the graveyard twisted into shapes resembling grasping hands. Sensory immersion. Visitors reported dizziness, hearing faint screams when pressing ears to the ground. Psychological grip. Descendants of Charleston's elite suffered recurring nightmares. Buried alive, faces of the enslaved staring through dirt. Emotional undertones. Shame permeated family lines, their fortunes tied to unspeakable acts. Institutional corruption persisted. Churches rebuilt, but sermons avoided the Beaumonts, focusing on healing. The seminary, reopened as a college, banned African studies, fearing pagan influences. Orphanage records, uncovered in 1880, revealed dozens of missing children, linked to Beaumont adoptions. Forbidden knowledge grew mythic. Solomon's story, sung in spirituals, became a symbol of resistance. 9 in the ground, the earth set free. Historical texture. 1930s folklore collections noted Lowcountry tales of a burier who walked with spirits, his graves a warning to oppressors. The narrative descended into the heart of trauma. The earth, not just a grave, was a witness, holding Charleston accountable. Each retelling of Solomon's tale peeled back denial, exposing a town's complicity. The question loomed, could redemption come without confronting the past? By the 1920s, Charleston's elite had buried Solomon's legend under progress. Skyscrapers rose, cotton wealth morphed into industrial fortunes, but the Beaumont plot remained barren, a scar on the city's map. Locals avoided it, whispering of shadows moving under moonlight, soil that never dried. Sensory details. The plot's air felt heavy, like breathing through wet cloth, with a faint hum vibrating through shoes. Psychological scars persisted. Descendants of complicit families reported insomnia, haunted by visions of 9 figures clawing upward. Suppressed truths leaked. A 1925 archaeological dig, funded by a curious Yankee, unearthed bone fragments near the old graveyard, too old for modern graves but too recent for colonial ones. The findings were hushed, artifacts lost in transit. Institutional control tightened. Churches preached unity, ignoring their role in blessing slavery. The orphanage, now a school, erased its past, but students whispered of cold spots and voices chanting 9. The seminary's vault, reopened briefly, revealed a charred page. The earth is judge. Emotional intensity. Guilt lingered like damp rot, families passing down unspoken shame. Forbidden knowledge persisted in black communities. Spirituals sang of Solomon, a liberator who fed the ground justice. Historical texture. WPA narratives from 1935 captured elders' tales of a burier whose graves were altars. The descent deepened, revealing trauma's permanence. Charleston's prosperity couldn't erase its foundation: blood and silence. Solomon's myth, though suppressed, lived in the margins, a reminder that the earth forgets nothing. By 1940, Charleston polished its image as a cultural gem, but the Beaumont plot remained a silent rebuke. Weeds choked the site, yet no developer touched it. Surveyors reported equipment failing, compasses spinning wildly. The air smelled of iron and decay, a sensory echo of 1842. Psychological grip tightened. Descendants of the elite, now bankers and politicians, suffered breakdowns, muttering of graves that watch. A 1942 psychiatrist's report, buried in archives, noted patients dreaming of being entombed, dirt clogging throats. Suppressed truths clawed free. A freedman's descendant, cleaning the old seminary, found a hidden journal, Solomon's own, written in code. It detailed the idol's power. Not a curse, but a channel for ancestral pain. Each burial a ritual to balance scales. Institutional corruption persisted. Churches rewrote histories, claiming the Beaumonts died of disease. The orphanage's records, leaked in 1945, showed children sold to plantations, their fates erased. The seminary, now a museum, locked away African artifacts, fearing their power. Emotional undertones, shame and fear haunted Charleston's elite, their wealth a tainted inheritance. Forbidden knowledge lived in oral traditions. Black communities sang of Solomon, his graves a symbol of resistance. Historical texture. 1940s folklore studies noted lowcountry tales of a shadow man who buried masters, his story a coded call for justice. The narrative descended further, toward a truth too heavy to bear. The earth held Charleston's sins, and Solomon's revenge was its voice. In 1948, a Charleston museum curator, defying orders, pried open the seminary's sealed vault. Inside, a single artifact, a cracked clay tablet inscribed with Yoruba symbols, pulsing faintly under torchlight. The air grew cold, smelling of wet earth and ancient blood. The curator vanished that night, his notes describing a hum that spoke. Psychological terror spread. Museum staff quit, reporting shadows with human shapes. The tablet was reburied, location undisclosed, but its discovery cracked Charleston's denial. Sensory immersion. The vault's walls felt alive, slick with condensation like sweat. Forbidden knowledge emerged. The tablet, linked to the idol, was a covenant with Ogun, binding oppressors to their crimes. Institutional control faltered. Churches held revivals, but congregations dwindled, haunted by rumors of cursed ground. The orphanage's site, now a park, saw children refuse to play, claiming the ground watches. Emotional intensity. Elite families, sensing exposure, donated to erase their names from history. Black communities, emboldened, shared Solomon's tale openly, his graves a symbol of unyielded justice. Historical texture. 1,949 oral histories recorded elders claiming Solomon lived, hiding among freedmen, his spirit guiding resistance. The descent deepened. Charleston's trauma wasn't past but present, etched in its soil. By 1950, Charleston's silence cracked. The Beaumont plot, still barren, became a pilgrimage site for black storytellers, who sang of Solomon under moonlight. The ground vibrated faintly, as if echoing their voices. Sensory details. Soil felt warm, like a pulse. Air carried whispers of 9. Psychological scars resurfaced. A senator, a Beaumont descendant, confessed to nightmares of buried ancestors, resigning in disgrace. Suppressed truths leaked. A 1950 newspaper, quickly retracted, reported unexplained mounds on the plot. Institutional corruption faced reckoning. Churches admitted funding from slave wealth, offering tepid apologies. The seminary's museum closed, artifacts shipped to unknown vaults. Emotional undertones. Guilt choked the city, its prosperity a hollow mask. Forbidden knowledge spread. Solomon's story, now in print, inspired civil rights whispers. Historical texture. 1950s folklore studies cemented his myth, a liberator who turned earth into justice. The narrative descended to its core. Charleston's trauma, unaddressed, festered. Solomon's revenge wasn't just vengeance. It was truth, demanding reckoning. The Beaumont plot, by 1950, was a forbidden shrine. Elders taught that Solomon's graves formed a circle, a Yoruba symbol of eternity, binding Charleston to its sins. Sensory immersion. Night visits revealed soil that shifted, as if breathing, scented with iron and moss. Psychological terror persisted. Locals avoided the plot, claiming dreams of hands breaking through earth. A 1951 surveyor, mapping the site, fled, swearing the ground sang. Suppressed truths erupted. A leaked church ledger named Beaumonts as slave traders, their wealth funding Charleston's growth. Institutions crumbled, seminaries rebranded, orphanages demolished. Emotional intensity. Shame unified black and white communities, some seeking redemption, others denial. Forbidden knowledge. Solomon's ritual, per oral histories, wasn't curse but cleansing, balancing trauma with justice. Historical texture. 1950s activists cited Solomon's tale, his grave's a metaphor for resistance. The descent reached its nadir. Charleston faced its mirror, unable to hide. Solomon's fate remained enigma. Some said he died, buried with the idol. Others claimed he walked free, a spirit in human form. His myth, by 1950, was indelible, sung in spirituals, etched in secret carvings. Sensory details. The Beaumont plot's air felt heavy, like a held breath. Psychological grip. Charlestonians reported visions of a tall man, eyes like obsidian, watching from shadows. Institutional reckoning began. Churches funded reparations studies. The seminary's vault was opened, artifacts repatriated. Emotional undertones. Hope mingled with pain, a city grappling with its past. Forbidden knowledge. Solomon's graves weren't vengeance but a call to remember. Historical texture. His story, preserved in 1950s oral archives, fueled civil rights dreams. The narrative paused, teetering on redemption's edge. Solomon's shadow loomed, a reminder. The earth forgets nothing. Charleston, 1950, stood at a crossroads. The Beaumont plot, now a memorial, bore a simple plaque, "To the unnamed, may the earth rest." Solomon's legend lived, a warning and a promise. Sensory immersion. The plot's silence screamed, soil warm underfoot. Psychological weight. Residents felt watched, as if the ground judged. Emotional intensity. Reconciliation began, black voices amplifying Solomon's truth. Suppressed truths surfaced fully, church records opened, detailed centuries of complicity. Forbidden knowledge. The idol's power was Charleston's guilt, reflected back. Historical texture. Solomon's tale, now global, inspired 1950s resistance movements. The descent ended here, not in closure but challenge. Face the trauma, or be buried by it.